Boom, we're live. Hey guys, this is Justin. Welcome to my show, The Debrief. This is episode 1. It's a 4-part series, and I'm going to go over different elements of my life as the foundation for this new series on my channel. Thank you guys for staying with me. I know it's been kind of a roller coaster, but that's just how my life is up until this point. There's been a lot of very dynamic things I've encountered over the years. From part 1 covers my childhood, my upbringing, dealing with a lot of family abuse and situations that I found myself in growing up inner city all the way to the country, and family dysfunction. Everybody has it. That was just my flavor of it. And making the decision finally in my high school years to join the U.S. Marine Corps and enter boot camp. That's part 2. Going into some of the most intense, challenging training in the world and surviving it and thriving in it. And that's the Marine Corps way of life. Marines hump until we die. And they teach you how to throw that pack on and never quit. And being sent to my platoon, my first platoon in North Carolina back in 2005, in the early 2000s, during this war on terrorism. I was sent to Iraq as a platoon sergeant initially, as an engineer and martial arts instructor, and then Fallujah, Iraq at the time was blowing up, and I was conducted operations in all Anbar province of Iraq back in 2005. Many of you know that was some of the roughest fighting of this war on terrorism, Operation Iraqi Freedom. And once I went through my combat deployment, which is part 3 of this 4-part series, I came back home. I extended my enlistment to go into combat with my platoon. So normally you have a 4-year enlistment. I extended over 4 years to deploy with my Marines, being that I was in a platoon sergeant position. And so I had a pretty rough combat deployment. It wasn't anywhere near what a lot of other service members dealt with, but I had my own effects from that. And I realized I had a specific situation where they wanted me to re-enlist, and there was an officer that was telling me to make a decision at one point to stay in the Marines, which I was a very successful Marine. I loved the Marine Corps, and by all intents and purposes, I should have stayed in, and I would have been retiring this time within the next 8 months if I had stayed in. To this day, I was medically retired. I had a severe back injury from doing a casualty evacuation drill when I was in Iraq in Fallujah, and I had numerous injuries, nerve damage from other things, a lot of martial arts stuff, and as well as a head injury in Iraq from an RPG, as well as other issues. And without giving my full medical workup, I came back and I had things I had to get with, and part of that was redefining myself and trying to fit in this civilian situation. A lot of service members, if you guys have your own story, leave a comment, something that was challenging to you when you got out. My biggest challenge was trying to angle the tempo that I was used to. I was used to go all the time, especially in Iraq. Obviously, it's a lot of hurry up and wait, like you guys know, but in an environment that was very extreme boredom mixed with very intense, overwhelming, challenging combat situations. So, coming back from Iraq, I shifted gears and I was emailing a buddy of mine, a good childhood friend of mine back here in Kansas, because as soon as I came back from Iraq, I had enough time to check out and get the fuck out. And so I did. As far as I could see, everything would be combat deployments. And I had several situations where I'm lucky to be here, and other guys that I served with are as well. And I was blessed. I wasn't going to take that for granted. I had my firstborn son at the time was 2 years old, so I made the decision that I would get out. Assisted and helped by a certain specific officer that while in country in Fallujah, in Camp Fallujah, prior to us leaving the last month, we were toning down the deployment, swapping out with the new guys that came in, teaching them our jobs, what to expect out there on these operations, different things like that. And we're doing a turnover. And so during that time, retention came in and wanted me to stay in. I was a sergeant. I had picked up E5 and was on the doorstep for E6 when prior to coming back. And so it was any normal situation, it would be a no-brainer to just go ahead and stay in. My officer flipped a coin because I was asking him, I was seeking him honest advice, really professional advice. Hey sir, where do you see me? What do you think? What are my options? I just need something. And I just went through a pretty rough deployment. And with this rough deployment, you know, he didn't experience the things that I did. He was stationed on the base and stayed there, and you know, that's nothing against him. He served his mission, but I had went through some really near-death experiences by these fucking terrorists trying to murder us and me and my guys. And they don't give a shit about who you are or where you're from necessarily. Obviously, they hate America, but I was seeking some advice from him, and I was really kind of needing that at that point. And he flipped a coin, threw it up in there, got it, and he goes, heads you stay in, tails you get out. And I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny looking back on it, but that right there, I didn't have to look and see what was there. That made my decision. I said, this is this officer, and I love my officers. You guys have your place. There's always that enlisted versus officer rivalry, but when it comes down to it, we're all part of the team and we obey orders diligently. But that specific situation turned me off, and I didn't want nothing to do with the Marines anymore. Not necessarily the Marines, but I wanted to get out and take what I had learned and apply it to the civilian world and my life. And I no longer wanted to be micromanaged or just have this big Marine Corps bubble above my head that a lot of Marines feel, because it's a very disciplined and strict organization for a reason, because we fight wars and we win wars, and we overwhelm the enemy by fire and maneuver. And in that time place, I'd served my purpose and my slice of the pie, and I didn't have to know whether it was heads or tails or not. That kind of thinking, I seen that it could have cost guys lives, and in some situations it did. So I got out. I was wanting more than just heads you stay in, tails you get out. So no matter what the fuck it was, I don't even remember what it was, but I got out. And I think it ended up being heads you stay in or something, but I got out. Said, thank you, sir. That's all I need to know. And got out. Came back to Kansas here. And I had emailed a friend of mine, a really good family friend, that wanted me to go into my local sheriff's office and apply and work in the jail. They needed people, all LEO guys and jailers, no matter state patrol, city, or county, or any of these other specialty LEO organizations like my Wildlife and Parks guys, or park rangers, thank you for your service. Especially during this time, it's really challenging, and we need good people to carry the torch and lead their communities by good example. And so when I came back in 2005-06, I applied, and I was waiting to get hired. I got hired by a major county jail here in Kansas, the biggest county jail here in Kansas, other than one other one, as far as I know. But I worked at that jail. I went through a 3-month academy. I was used to going to different specialty schools and training environments, so I just applied myself, and I had a blast doing it. I had fun learning how to inmate management, doing processing, defensive tactics, obviously. In the Marines, I had plenty of experience with that. But once again, I found myself, a lot of civilians don't understand the military side, especially combat veterans. So I had all this plethora of experience, and for better and worse. And I was in school with some of these kids that just, I was like, man, what? One of those moments where you're like, why am I here? I'm kind of confused a little bit, but I'm just going to take it one day at a time. And so I went into the jail. Finally went through field training, they pair you up with a deputy once you go through the academy and you graduate. Get OC sprayed again. I got OC sprayed in the Marine Corps doing close quarters combat, so it was like my second time getting OC sprayed, and I hate that shit. And anybody who's been sprayed, tased, any of that shit, I'd rather get shot in the fucking shoulder again. And I'm telling you, if I'm gonna be battling it out if some shit like that happens again. So I ended up working at the jail for 3 years, approximately, and then I was so tired of dealing with negative, like these inmates. Here I was leading Marines in Iraq and all these things, and I came back and I'm just around a lot of just, rough people that made bad decisions, and I'm trying to manage them and dealing with a lot of them, being a deputy in the jail, we're their only source of kind of information. We're kind of like their lifeline to get things done. Sending mail, sending requests through the jail, and so they didn't and obviously you're dealing with people, personality disorders, lots of trauma in their upbringings, so they're just not quick to be really balanced people. And so communication was very difficult with some of these people, and you're dealing with murderers, rapists, killers, all the way down to people with traffic violations and things like that just were in the wrong place, right time, and just made a bad decision. And I want you guys to understand, through these years I've learned that a law is a law is a law, but that doesn't mean that I'm a fucking drone out here and can't think for myself. If I'm put in a situation where I have to enforce the law, then I am. That doesn't mean I'm going to disrespect the people that I encounter, or degrade them or devalue them, or treat them with a lack of dignity, because I do, and I always have, and then it's made me successful. And I think being in the Marine Corps and leading Marines and training next to them and learning from my superiors and mentors helped me out in that regard, dealing with people that don't always listen to orders, or having bad days on the criminal side of society, and that doesn't make them a lifelong criminal. Most of them just make a bad decision and learn from it and move on and recover and are successful people. And maybe they were when that shit happened, but I've met a lot of those people in the jail, and got a lot of very, very valuable insight into the criminal mind, all the way down to, like I said, just the average Joe, that we're just caught up in really bad, unfortunate situations that exploit human nature. And human nature is to make mistakes and to learn from them and recover. Some of those mistakes are ethical, some of them are moral, some of them are just really trivial mistakes. Others are breaking the law that has been set by society, and formed into law by your government, local, to state, to federal laws, for better and worse. And I can sit here and fucking complain about them all day long like anybody else, because that doesn't mean that I agree with certain laws, but I have a job to do, and I do that job very well. So the jail taught me the final edge of where that is. Those guys weren't necessarily convicted at that point, a lot of them, because county jail is a holding situation most of the time, for certain reasons, and so they stay there until their trial's complete and they have a conviction and sentencing, and then they go off to the prison for long-term serving their time. And so, yes, do I think the justice system, I'm not going to be, all these political things, I'm sure you guys have tons of questions, and I'm more than willing to expound on some of those. But yes, the justice system isn't perfect. I know I'm a part of that, and I know that a lot of people have negative view on law enforcement in general. Some of them, and I have tons of support from law enforcement, and I appreciate all of you guys, regardless whether you appreciate my position or not. That doesn't mean that I'm going to view you any different. I've had plenty of negative people come up to me and treat them no different. So, with that said, very valuable experience in the jail. A lot of very good people, deputies in there, and that I'm still very good friends with to this day. I was having a lot of combat trauma that was kind of just lurking underneath the surface, that I was kind of running around and always doing what I knew best, which was working out, chasing girls here and there, trying to find a new relationship. I went through a divorce when I got out. I had a 3-year-old son that, I was paying child support and all this stuff like a lot of people. I'm no different. And so I was working a lot of overtime, just trying to pay my child support. Getting out of the military, law enforcement doesn't get paid a lot of money for what we do. And so I actually took a pay cut when I got out, and I was trying to figure out myself financially so that I could live, kind of a more stable life financially, like I did in the military. So I made the decision to join the U.S. Navy. I joined the reserves to be a Master at Arms. It carried right over with my law enforcement career. And so I joined Master at Arms, and as I was leaving the Marine Corps, I was promoted to E6, which is Staff Sergeant, and then I retained my rank, went in Master at Arms First Class Petty Officer in the U.S. Navy. And Marines work closely with the Navy, so I understood a lot of that, but I didn't understand kind of really what the reserves was about. And I thought we'd be shooting guns all day, training on the weekends, and going and doing all these other training. You have your annual training, but go off to these cool schools and do some awesome stuff. So I did. But daily life on the weekends was just, on my 1 week in a month, was just hurry up and do all this online stuff and accountability for this, that, and the other. And I was in different jobs situations while I was in 6 years. And so I was LPO, lead petty officer of my unit. And so it was very different from what I was used to from the Marines. And I love the Navy, but I transitioned simultaneously on the civilian side. I went in, I flew out to North Virginia and applied and got into the CIA because I was just done with being in the jail. I was done. And so I went into the CIA, filled out all this stuff online, all this high speed cognitive exams and all this stuff to go to the agency, and flew out there to do some interviews at a certain place, and there was like maybe 10 or 15 of us out of like, months and months and months of people that they had stirred up and applied, and I'm sure hundreds of applicants, if not more, and they hired me. They said, okay, so they briefed us on different things and where your pipeline with training would be, and they said, okay, and keep in mind, I'm working in the jail, I'm still fresh out of combat, fresh out of the Marines, and they mentioned several things that kind of really triggered me a little bit and got my damn ears perked up and eyes perked up, that I didn't feel was patriotic or really that really didn't jive with where I just came from. So I was all gung-ho up to a certain point, and then they fucking pissed me off. I'll just put it that way. The powers that be pissed the fuck this guy off right here. And so I switched gears and I came back home. They said, we're going to send you a background packet. You just need to fill that out. If you get this packet, it'll have your conditional job offer, and you just need to fill this out, and then we're going to send you to these places for training. And so I got back home, flew back home here to Kansas, and was finishing up, ready to get out of working in the jail and transition my career. And they sent me that packet. I declined, which was crazy because my liaison with the CIA, he really just didn't think, he didn't understand why. He was like, you're crazy. Why the fuck don't you want to do this? And I was like, hey, I just got my reasons, and I made some excuses. I'm like, I want to be part of my local law enforcement. And so, but really, just, we'll talk about that some other time if I even do it all. But I just wasn't, I didn't appreciate some of the things that were said during my interviews about kind of what my mission would entail and who I would be working with and things like that. It just wasn't in line with my patriotic views with this country. So, and quite frankly, it pissed me off. Came back home. I had applied several times to get on road patrol with my department, the sheriff's office, and finally there was a recruiter situation where I had mentioned that I was at the last leg of hiring on with my sheriff's office, and I didn't see any reason why I wasn't going to get on this time. The 6-month hiring process, and this was my second time, so I had almost a year of just kind of waiting and taking tons of tests and polygraphs and all these things to get out of the jail and move on. And so I switched gears. After I was told I didn't make it, another recruiter with my agency said, yes, you made it. You just need to sit at home for your at-home interview. I found out the recruiter got switched around at the last minute, and he augmented some of the individuals that were going to be hired. And I was one of those guys that was augmented and didn't get hired. And I think it was because the word on the street was I had this other opportunity with the CIA. And I mentioned that just because there was a small part of me that still wanted, and this was parallel to my sheriff's office, was the CIA deal. And I wasn't sure if I was going to take that opportunity. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to do the thing with the CIA. But a small part of me still wanted to, because I mean, damn near a 6-figure a year job out in North Virginia and beyond. So I was really kind of yearning to kind of get out again after being stuffed in the jail for about 3 years straight from Iraq and the Marine Corps. I was told I didn't make the hiring process, and so I had to start over again. And I was so unbelievably pissed off. If you guys, all my cops out there, the hiring process, if you have a story about your hiring process, tell me how long it took you. Some of you guys that are looking to go in law enforcement and are ready to take on that challenge, you need to understand it's not an easy thing. Look at my video on 5 tips to hiring the law enforcement hiring process. It's very difficult sometimes, and sometimes people luck out and they just get right in. It's just kind of a luck of the draw, but you can't stop. You just have to keep being very diligent and persistent and understand and embody where you want to see yourself. So it's just not all about having a cool car and a gun and a vest and freedom to go out and enforce laws. It's one of the coolest, shittiest jobs in the world. It's the coolest, shittiest job. All right, so it's a conflict of interest, but it's an up and down balancing act that any career law enforcement officer knows. And so an Army buddy of mine that I worked in the jail with, he's Army infantry, really good friend of mine. He just came back from Iraq too, and got hired on with an agency within our county, and asked me to come on. He was like, "Hey, I think we got a spot," and this was immediately after I got. I was not hired with that agency, with my sheriff's office, and my CIA package, you had to fill that out within 10 days, or else they blacklisted you and you're done. So I didn't return my background check with the CIA, so I was just either going to just stay in the jail until further notice or jump on an opportunity. And it was one of the lower paying agencies at the time, and I didn't give a shit. I was like, I got to get out of this jail. Matter of fact, I left the jail a little bit early to go all the way back to a lawn care job, fertilizing, weed spray, residential, commercial lawn care, before I even got hired on with that agency completely. So 2-3 months before I even got on with my agency, a police department, I was doing the same job I was doing when I was 18, when I joined the Marines, which was really, really hard work, but I wanted to get back in shape, and I just wanted a little bit of a change from being stuck in the jail. So thank you, jailers, COs, guards. It's a fucking hard job for a lot of reasons people don't get, but I get you. And to the point where I did the first job I ever did in the very beginning. So, all right, this is going to be my second phase coming into the next part of this video. So hang in there, and we're going on patrol. Okay guys, so the second part of the video, thanks for hanging in there. Don't forget to subscribe. So finally got out of the jail, and I got hired on with my new agency. I went to the academy. So basically, agencies work kind of like this. Basically, there's you can either work for a city, you can work for a sheriff's office, which is county. That's all jurisdictional. That's your area of responsibility. And then you can be state patrol, and usually a lot of our guys are assigned, several counties depending on population and the need for enforcement. So I got on with a small municipality, a suburb of a major city that had its fair share of crime like anywhere else, but especially being a suburb of a major city on the north side, we had quite a bit of stuff. And our department was developing, so like a lot of people maybe you don't know, or you do, my cops out there, my guys, especially my city guys, your police chief is appointed, and so he is kind of, in my experience, can kind of be influenced by the city administration. So there's sometimes his or her hands are tied in ways they don't want, which influences their agency, whether for training or need of supplies or manpower. A sheriff is elected. A sheriff, which is where I work at now, a sheriff's office here in the Flint Hills. And I've been out here about almost 4 years now. But they're appointed and a chief is appointed and a sheriff is elected. And where I'm at, I love working for my boss, and but fourth biggest county in Kansas, that's a lot of land to cover. I have my little patrol video I did as kind of a little experiment. Check it out. It's called Deep Blue, a day on patrol, and it was just kind of a little experimental thing to see content wise, maybe different vantage points and somewhere I wanted to explore. But with my agency, thankfully I got hired on, and I cut my teeth in law enforcement as a rookie. Even though I had some experience in the military, it's a whole new ball game. There's a lot of parallels, especially gray areas, because when we get out here and we operate, it's a gray area, and you got to learn how to roll with the punches and adapt and have impeccable customer service, be a problem solver, be a professional witness, document everything, and to utilize your tools, your patrol units, your office, and you need to maintain all your equipment and roll with the punches with the politics as well as the community, and balance all that out and make it work. So my police chief sent me off to the academy. The best way, I'm not going to go into all the academy stuff, but some of the cliff notes of that was, you need to earn a criminal justice degree in 3 months or more. Some agencies are 6 months. So you there's a big emphasis on understanding constitutional law, state, local law, federal laws, in some aspects, and then room clearing, search and seizure, all your constitutional rights. We have to understand those, and not only that, but keep those in mind when we're dealing with the public, so that their rights aren't violated, and due process is allowed to happen. I don't want to go on all the politics and stuff. I appreciate all you guys out there that are doing this job. It's a very difficult job, but it's worse if you're not ethical when no one's looking. And unfortunately, I get it. There's some guys out there that are shitheads, and they should never fucking wear the uniform. So, but in the academy, I don't hire people. I have, like I told you in my other videos, I have my slice of the pie. I can't save the fucking whole world, but I can exercise and leverage my influence in this little area one day at a time while I have this uniform on, and do what I can. And then I have to, I'll dig some satisfaction out of that, and help people out when no one else is looking. And in law enforcement, you can't talk about the shit 99% of the time, unless it's an old case and things like that. But which is, I'll talk about some things. But yeah. So went to the academy, went through all those things. Marines are all about sharpshooting and being marksmen and all this stuff. So I shot 49 out of 50 on the range with my Glock, and I was issued a Glock 40 at that time. Back in 2009-ish. Like I said, my dates are all jacked up, but so if you shot 50 out of 50, they put your name on a plaque, and you're the cool guy. And I was like, I gotta show these guys what's up. I gotta really, really, really clown all these guys with my mad skills. But it was like sub-degree weather. Once again, freezing. In Kansas, it's the extremes of everything. That's just the way it is. But so it was sub-zero, high wind. We're out there on the range, 25 yards, and yeah, I shot 49 out of 50. And I got a little marksmanship award at the end when we graduated, but I mean, I want my name on that plaque, but have all these big gloves on and all this gear, and it's windy and below freezing and whatever. So graduated, went through a lot of really good scenarios. One thing I did realize, as far as like the shooting aspect and things like that, you can never, we have our own range here at this agency, and it's a blessing. I go out there all the time and shoot, and because you can just never, even though there's a fucking ammo crisis right now, I'll still go out there and put steel on target because that's part of my profession. And you gotta be faster, sharper, and quicker. But yeah, you got some kids that are right out of college that choose to put on this uniform and go out there, and you know what? Your agency can only do so much. You, as a professional, need to take that next step and develop yourself. Here in Kansas, we have to do 40 hours of training every year just to keep our certification. And I've been through hostage negotiator schools, different things. That was a five-day school, on top of your schedule that you have to work most of the time. And every agency I know or have ever known of never has enough guys out on the street to take calls. And the guys that are on patrol or investigating, they're overloaded with stacks of cases. And the war of attrition will never end with law enforcement. That's just the way it is. So, yeah. If you're one of those people, pick up the torch and get out there and, make the difference that you say you want to see. So got through the academy, got to my first, I went through field training when I got back to my agency after I graduated. I'm a little thin blue line pup, ready to get with it and do my thing, like I said, and exercise all my mad skills out on the streets. And my first call was one of my first calls. It floods here in Kansas really bad, and so it was like a submerged vehicle call. And so this elderly lady was in this truck that's floating away in like the lowest area in our valley where we worked, called Baxter Springs. And you guys know what I'm talking about. And so she's floating away, and I didn't know. I was from the inner city, so I had to drive all the way there every day, about 20 minutes ish, and to come to and from work. And I didn't know that city super well until after I got hired on, and I didn't know that it flooded there all the time right there. And so I went through there, and I'm like, glug, 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 glug. I flooded out my unit, blew the engine. It was a great time. And like I said, Marines are amphibious, so I didn't really have a problem after that. I just stepped out and just looked at my unit and went over and helped the lady and got her out of the car. And then took what was coming to me after that. So, especially being a rookie and you just fuck up your first unit. So that was my first taste of that, and it took me a while till I got my new car. But so being on the real side of law enforcement, before I get into the rest of that, but so parallel to this, I had remarried. You know, I was working on my relationship and my marriage. Like I said, especially some of the things in law enforcement were kind of starting to exacerbate old little wounds that I hadn't addressed or even paid attention to. And so I was just kind of having some anxieties, things going on, little bouts of being down, and it was weird how it was affecting me. And I was, social withdrawal and different things that were symptoms of very normal effects of what I had been going through, and that was my normal. And in the Navy, I had joined Master at Arms in the Navy, and I was E6, and I'd start cutting my teeth in law enforcement, and I made the decision. I'm like, screw it. I'm going back active duty. I can't do this reserve stuff anymore. So I had to go back through the recruiters, like a good buddy of mine, a GM1, and I'm MA1, going in there. The recruiters, just like any other swinging body, and I'm like, hey, what are my options? He's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't want to be on a ship ever. And I'm like, the only boat I want to be on is one with guns, and I see this SWCC stuff. I ain't trying to be a SEAL. Those guys can do that. I want to be that, and it's doable. I know I can do that without a doubt. And I made up my mind right there. That's all I was focused on. I still kicked ass and did my job in law enforcement, but the pay wasn't really there, and I was the military thing was my thing. And so my OIC, my commander, on my days on the weekends, I would just do my own thing and swam in the pool every day, ran push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups. I was hitting the gym really hard at the time, so I toned down the weights and emphasized endurance. And so I was doing swimming all the time, and I was water survival qualified in the Marines, so I was in the pool all the time. And I'm a Pisces, so I'm a swimmer, amphibious by heart, and so I was always in the pool, timing myself and just grinding all the time. And I just lived and breathed. I had to go back out to MEPS, and basically I did the Special Operations Fitness Test, EOD, SEALs, SWCC, Navy Diver, all those special warfare community jobs. I decided to do SWCC, and you go out to Coronado, do the whole, it's a simplified version of BUDS, SEAL training, and you work with those teams. It's a special warfare combatant craft crewman. I was at E6. They're under SEAL command, and you have usually an E6 assigned as the boat team leader. I wasn't expecting to go right into that billet, but I was mid-rank enough to where they would send me to the school still. So I thought. So I did that. I kicked ass, and I did every single day, I was in the pool running, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and every month I had to retake my Special Operations Fitness Test, and I did that. And but in Iraq, I did a casualty evacuation drill right before we did a mission, and we had to carry one of the heaviest Marines, and the biggest Marine in our platoon, a big old black dude. He was like 6'4", probably 300 pounds, full combat load, came out of the 7-ton on my shoulders, fireman's carry, fire team around us, security, and then run 100 yards. But I had blew my L5S1 posterior anterior herniated disc while I was in Fallujah doing from that drill. And over the years, especially as I was getting a little bit older, that started affecting me a lot. Bilateral sciatica. Anybody have that shit, especially doing this job? The cops out wearing our gear. But so yeah, this leg had atrophied a little bit, and it's just ongoing battle. And so that was a VA thing too. But that started really when you train like that at that level. That started really coming around, and that injury started kicking my ass. And that was back when the economy started jacking up and the last housing crisis and all that. And so budget cuts started happening. It was just really bad time, for better or worse. And so 6 months goes by, and all I'm doing is retaking these spec op fitness tests, ready to go to Coronado to just do my 3-month school or whatever it is. And I'm all prepped up. I'm zoning out, researched everything. I'm ready to just get in there. I'm thinking, all right, I'll get in there. I'll just crush this thing, sacrifice myself. I'm not going to quit. They'll kill me. I'll kill myself before I get out of there, training. But I'll make it. I just didn't see it any other way. That's just how you have to view things like that. So I lived and breathed it. I kind of wanted to see my civilian life just go away, and so I could get back in the shit and go try to do the career thing. And the budget cuts happened. They shut me down. They didn't want to E6 going to Coronado, and it was some really sobering, shitty fucking news, but I just had to suck it up. And especially after training like that. And then not only that, but my back. Yeah, I was thinking after I got through the school, I'd feather it out and figure out my back shit, whatever. But nerve damage in my wrists and hands and other shit. But so I started. I just figure out my Navy shit in the reserves and just finish that out and feather it out. I started having some pretty crazy calls while I was on patrol. I had one situation where a kid I was mentoring committed suicide by laying on the train tracks and drinking himself to the point where he went unconscious, and he was hit twice with a train. That morning I came in, he worked at a gas station, and I wouldn't say mentor him, but I was just always kind of checking up on him because I liked him. He was a pretty cool kid. And I go on and get my Monster energy drink and talk to him. And that day I was dispatched to go check the train tracks, and because 2 trains called this in, and I went out there, and his family member got a text, and his girlfriend, mom, and best friend, and I guess he sent out a text, and they were out looking for him too. And I ended up finding him on the tracks, and you could just imagine after 2 trains had went over him, the condition he was in. And it was just it was one of those things where it just kind of throws you around in Iraq. In Iraq, our gym in Fallujah, Camp Fallujah, was right next to a Fallujah surgical medical center. The surgical center, basically, it would just stabilize Marines and friendlies that were severely injured, burned head to toe. I would go in there. Every time I would go to the gym, there'd be call for blood or anything like that, and I would go in there and donate blood and help out whatever I could, along with other guys. And I'd see Marines and other guys just in atrocious, mangled conditions from IEDs and rockets and mortars and wrecks, and burnt head to toe, guys going into shock. It was just kind of unfortunately a frequent thing. And so that kind of, I hadn't seen something like that in several years since Iraq. And so kind of jostled me a little bit. And his mom and family had just found him at the same time, and so they're free. I mean, you can only imagine. I mean, you don't want to see somebody in that condition. And he had these green glasses that he always wore. And that's how I identified him initially, because only one person had those glasses there, and that's how I figured out it was him. But anyway, we picked him up on the tracks and put him in a bag with the coroner, and It was a tough call, but I had several other calls at the same time. It just everything kind of imploded a little bit in my personal life. My marriage was kind of going south again, and I wasn't attending to myself. Starting to go to the VA because of my back and figuring that out. But then they're like, hey, by the way, you might want to check into that and this and that. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm solid as a rock, bro. And so kept grinding on, and had one situation where there was a bank robbery, high-speed chase. I got the vehicle, several suspects, bailed, car ran into a post, and I got in a foot chase with one kid and chased him down, and there was a gun involved, armed robbery at a bank. And I got in a situation where I had to make the decision to put him down. And by the way, if you ever put somebody in that position, yeah. So I do, make that decision. One of the worst decisions you have to make, but it's a decision that needs to happen in some cases. And that guy was a major risk to our community and putting people's lives at risk, and was going to do whatever it took to escape and evade being held accountable for his actions. And I wasn't going to let that happen, so I chased him down. I had several. I took 2 shots at him at various points in the foot chase. And there was situations where I thought he was going to ambush me. But several units came in, 98 responding officers, officer in trouble call, foot chase, bank robbery. Yeah, you can only imagine. Everybody was taken into custody. One of the suspects went into a house and tied up a kid in our community, held him hostage. SWAT went in. But we took all those guys in custody. I went and ended up getting the driver that I was in a foot chase with, and I was pissed. Obviously we're camera, so everything was documented, and I told that kid, I'm like, dude. He was like, yeah, I felt your bullet go between my legs. It was like a 50-yard shot with the Glock 40. No, I had a 9 at the time, but yeah, I don't want to kill that kid. I told him that. I'm like, dude, why the fuck? Why would you do that? Why would you put me in that position? You put me in that position. I didn't just appear and wanted to shoot you, bro. So, yeah. Anyway, that blew over. But still, I mean, you're investigated, all this stuff. It's just, it's a headache. And it's a very, not a cool position to be in. A lot of dynamic stuff with it. So, I got back in patrol and was, obviously it was justified. All those guys got convicted and held accountable, as they should have been. Later on, I found a $100 bill. I was taking a cadet out there, showing them like the scene, and he was like, "Oh, there's $100 right there." It was like a few days after that. Turned it into evidence. Yeah, we didn't pocket it. We don't do that shit. So, another situation. I was in a situation where this drunk driver in a car, joyriding, had been in a hit and run. I didn't know the vehicle was stolen, but I stopped them. They were going into oncoming traffic. Stopped the car. My partner got up there. She had the vehicle in drive. She wouldn't get out. Told me to fuck off. So my partner tased her. The taser's 5 seconds. 5 seconds for X26. Or some of you guys got the updated one. But 5-second ride. I reached in, tried to unbuckle her from the seatbelt. The door's open. I tried to pull her out, and she was just wouldn't get out. And hit the gas. The door slammed me in. She punched me in the face. And I had the choice to either get in the car with him and grind it out that way, or push off, and hopefully I didn't get ran over. And I did that. It's the middle of the night. I pushed off, threw my taser down. I had my taser out too. Threw it down, pushed off, and luckily I barely made it out. My partner was on the other side. Thought I got ran over and was being drugged underneath the car because it was dark, and from his vantage point he couldn't tell. He took the shot. This is my buddy, like one of my best friends that got me into law enforcement, Army infantry guy. So took several shots at her, one through the back window, one through the trunk, went through, hit her in her vertebrae. She was high on meth and wouldn't stop. We got into like a 20-minute, 15-minute car chase all the way into the city north of us, where she crashed and rolled her car into a business, and then I actually had to rescue her out of there after she put us in a deadly situation. And my partner had some issues after that, and it's a sensitive subject, but later on, so we took a small break. We both ended up taking a small break from law enforcement. For me, he went back to school. I started attending to things that I needed to attend to make myself 100% for longevity purposes, for my family and relationship stuff. And I did. I remarried a Ukrainian woman that I fell in love with, and spent some time over there with her in Ukraine, Slava Ukraina, and getting to know her culture, and for her to, I wanted to see what it was like at her level. And so I did that, and while this was all going on, the whole immigration process and everything, it's a very, my respect and love to all you guys that are doing it the right way, because you gotta pay to play, and I did. And it was a long process. It took about 2-3 years before she even got here, and we've been here. Unfortunately, we're kind of a little bit separated right now, and but like I said, it's not for anything specific. It's just sometimes people are different, very different cultures. Nothing but love for each other. But hopefully we'll work through it. And but I took that break, and that was what was going on then, and I never intended on going back into law enforcement, because it's a very non-glorified job. I mean, people hate cops, mostly. Nobody wants to be held accountable. But you got to be accountable for your actions, and especially cops, and especially people in our job field. I'm not trying to lecture you guys. You guys are hopefully grown men and women, and young ladies and boys that are aspiring to do something great in the world. I encourage you to do that. Take from what you can from this. I moved out of the city. I had a job opportunity to work for the agency I'm at now, and I'm like, okay, as long as my sheriff doesn't micromanage me, he lets me do my job and gives me the tools to do my job, then I'm going to kick ass and take names, and I have been, and I love it. It's like a kind of a second chance, and I'm taking, I'm out here in the country. I can always go to the city if I want to and do my thing, and our country's kind of in a weird position, but I want you guys to learn as much as you can from this. If you have any questions, let me know. I have nothing but love for you guys. Look, we're part of the same team. I'll go into little things here and there regarding my different career fields. And if you guys have any questions you want answered, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for your time. I know it's a long video, but hopefully that gives you some substance that we can build on.